Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. The South Korean leader is now in Uzbekistan for the third and final stop of his week-long Central Asia trip. He'll be looking to clinch cooperation in energy, supply chains, and core minerals. South Korea's economy is picking up speed on the road to recovery thanks to strong exports in the manufacturing sector. An influx of foreign tourists to the country is also pushing the pace of recovery. The U.S. and Ukraine sealed a bilateral security pact that ensures 10 years of Washington's security commitment to Ukraine. G7 leaders also agreed to lend Ukraine $50 billion using frozen Russian assets. President Yoon will be sitting down for a summit with his Uzbek counterpart today. He's hopeful Seoul's special strategic partnership with Uzbekistan will scale up their cooperation in energy and critical minerals. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
President Yoon plans to ramp up South Korea's special strategic partnership with Uzbekistan through stronger cooperation in resources and infrastructure, as well as cutting-edge technology. In a written interview with an Uzbek media outlet published Thursday, ahead of his state visit to the Central Asian country, Yoon said he aims to bolster bilateral ties to become more mutually beneficial and future-oriented. Since establishing diplomatic ties in 1992, South Korea and Uzbekistan have broadened the scope of their economic cooperation to include automobiles, energy, electronics, textiles, finance and telecommunications, with bilateral trade hitting an all-time high of $2.46 billion last year. Yoon said his three-day visit will aim to build on the two countries' special strategic partnership forged in 2019 and establish close cooperation on energy, infrastructure and supply chains, and crucially, critical minerals to power Korea's high-tech industries, including semiconductors. The president highlighted advanced digital technology and AI semiconductors as key areas of collaboration. In this summit with Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and a bilateral business forum scheduled Friday, Yoon also plans to back Korean companies in their efforts to secure local energy and infrastructure projects and make inroads into other industries.
So far, Korea-Uzbekistan relations have made remarkable progress centered on the energy and infrastructure fields. And today, cooperation is expanding to more diverse fields such as supply chains, healthcare, climate change, education, and public administration.
Acknowledging the 170,000 ethnic Koreans living in Uzbekistan, Yoon described it as a brother nation, as it's the only country in the region that has a special strategic partnership with Korea. He also pledged greater interest and support for overseas Koreans going forward.
President Yoon says he hopes the two sides will create a 21st century Silk Road through broader cooperation and human exchanges in cutting-edge fields, and as core partners of Seoul's new K-Silk Road initiative designed to boost engagement with Central Asian countries in economic security, development and culture. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Tashkent.
And in light of President Yoon's visit to Central Asia, we must mention Koryo Saram, meaning ethnic Koreans living in Central Asia. Our Song Yujin explains how they've laid out a bridge between South Korea and the region.
The term Koryo Saram, meaning Koryo people, has two meanings. One refers to those who lived in the ancient Koryo kingdom on the Korean peninsula around 1,000 years ago. The other refers to ethnic Koreans who lived in the former Soviet Union and their descendants. Currently, there are around 500,000 Koryo Saram worldwide, with approximately 300,000 residing in Central Asia.
They call themselves Koryo Saram because they came from Korea before it was divided into North and South. The name Korea is derived from Koryo, also romanized as Koryo.
The first records of Koryo Saram date back to 1864 when, due to economic hardships, around 60 Koreans from Hamgyongdo province crossed the Tuman River to settle in Russia's Far East Primorsky Krai. Historians say this marked the start of Korean emigration. More people continued to move to the region, but in 1937, under Soviet leader Joseph Stalin's orders, over 200,000 Koryo Saram suspected of being Japanese spies were deported to Central Asia.
Forced relocation to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan was treacherous. In the initial years, mortality rates were high, especially among children and the elderly, due to the cold, harsh weather, and lack of necessary infrastructure.
Despite these challenges, Koryo Saram persevered through what experts call their diligence. Working on collective farms known as cohorts, they earned recognition and respect in their new homelands. Over time, many broadened their roles in society, becoming doctors, lawyers, teachers, and scientists.
The strong commitment of Koryo Saram to education was truly remarkable. They did everything they could to send their children to college, and if possible, even abroad to places like Moscow. Rather than staying in farming, these parents relentlessly pushed their children to pursue higher education.
What also makes Koryo Saram unique is how they preserve their Korean heritage and identity.
Their identity is maintained not through the most common ways of religion or language, but through traditional cultural practices. Even today, many Koryo Saram families follow traditional Korean customs in their daily lives, such as funeral ceremonies, often more intricately than those living in Korea, maintaining a sense of connection to their heritage.
Having endured more than a century-long journey of resilience and cultural preservation, Koryo Saram serve as a bridge between Korea and Central Asia. 송유진, Arirang News.
As the date for planned mass walkouts from big universities and smaller community hospitals approaches, the government has announced plans for dealing with this situation in the coming weeks. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
South Korea's government has vowed to take a strong stance against no-show medical professionals, as doctors and medical school professors are due to take collective action starting next week. During an emergency briefing on Thursday, the government stated that as medical law stipulates, a medical practitioner cannot refuse to treat patients without a justifiable reason. The planned walkouts would be treated as illegal acts.
Government will prioritize the people's lives and health and maintain emergency medical care while responding firmly against illegal actions.
Members of the Medical Professors Association of Korea, with professors at 40 universities around the country, will take a day off next Tuesday in solidarity with the Korea Medical Association in a move against the government's medical school quota hike. In a separate move, other major university hospitals are scheduling indefinite walkouts, the first being professors at Seoul National University Hospital starting next Monday. They attempted to ease the public's concerns by stating that only scheduled appointments and surgeries would be affected, and emergency treatment and the intensive care unit would be supplemented with additional staff. The Emergency Response Committee for Medical Professors at SNU is due to hold a press conference on Friday afternoon to explain its stance further. On the day of mass walkouts, the government plans to note which medical institutions are participating in collective action and will issue an administrative order to return to work if leaves of absence surpass 30% in each city. With little time left until the day of action, the KMA said it could reconsider if the government changes its stance and requested talks with the KMA as a representative of the medical body. The statement has been met with backlash from other doctors' groups, such as the one for junior doctors, with its head declaring on his personal Facebook page that the KMA does not represent them. Meanwhile, groups representing patients' rights responded to the news with a demand to withdraw collective action plans that threaten the lives and welfare of patients. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The Korea Economy Research Institute on Thursday revised South Korea's economic growth rate for this year, up from its previous 2% forecast to 2.4%. The institute cited improvement in export performance due to an improved global economy as the reason for the upward revision. It said the increase in semiconductor exports, thanks to greater demand for artificial intelligence, will be a major factor in improving the overall export performance. However, the recovery in domestic demand will be delayed until the high exchange rate and high inflation trends ease. But still, with positive signs such as a slowdown in inflation and an increase in exports, South Korea's domestic demand is growing. Our Park Kwon-woo has the latest data.
South Korea's economy is slowly picking up its pace. Data from the latest Economic Green Book from the Finance Ministry on Friday showed that, as inflation slows down and the manufacturing sector sees positive signs, domestic demand is growing. For the month of May, inflation was 2.7% on year. This is down from 2.9% in April. In particular, the prices for agricultural goods have stabilized as supply improved with better weather conditions compared to the year before.
Unlike in the previous month, which had a slight slowdown in inflation with a curved flow, for this month, we can say that inflation has indeed slowed down.
Production and construction investment also showed positive signs. Overall industrial production for April saw an increase of 3.1% compared to the year before. It's notable that all three major sectors that make up overall production, which are mining and manufacturing, construction, and services, saw a rise. Construction investment went up with increased building permit areas compared to last year, allowing for more construction orders, yet infrastructure investment fell. Strong exports and an increase in tourists, especially those from China, also pulled up the economy. Exports for May were up by 11.7% on the back of strong IT exports, such as semiconductors, as well as strong auto exports. However, despite an increase in tourists, retail sales saw a slight drop with a decrease in the number of cars sold domestically. The government has placed its priority on stabilizing people's livelihoods by increasing the management of potential risks and focusing on policies to boost the economy. Park Geon-woo, Arirang News.
Korean content startups are stealing the show at NextRise. That's the largest startup fair in Asia, as they aim for the global market. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin went to see what they have to offer.
It's an opportunity for local startups to rise and take off into the global market. Here at this year's NextRise, the largest startup fair in Asia, which is being held in Seoul for 2 days starting Thursday, startups have the chance to not only network but also showcase their latest products and services.
Startups are becoming a new growth engine for our economy, so our government is planning to do all that we can to support them.
The annual event, which has taken place since 2019, features more than 500 domestic and global startups this year. And the largest booth at the event was one run by the Korea Creative Content Agency, a government organization affiliated with the Ministry of Culture that oversees the promotion of local content, one of the nation's most promising export sectors. One of the featured startups is this domestic startup that breaks down language barriers by translating content using AI and converting them into audio-dubbed files in English, Chinese, and Japanese.
We help make content from domestic companies such as SM Entertainment reach global fans, and at the same time help content from overseas companies reach the domestic audience.
Another local startup that is using advanced technology to promote various media content is this data analysis business. One of its services provides in-depth marketing insights by analyzing the sensory responses of audience members with an IoT-based headband as they watch a certain scene. Depending on how the viewer responds to the scene, production companies may decide to cut or keep it.
There is also a large demand overseas for services that can analyze the weak and strong points of various media content. And since ours is the first that's able to analyze viewers' biosignals, we expect to see robust global demand.
And in recognition of how important it is for startups to expand abroad so they can, according to industry insiders, expand revenue streams, Japan was selected as the featured guest country at the fair, the first time this type of selection has been made.
With the fair putting a greater focus on overseas markets and providing plenty of networking opportunities, local startups will be able to use this as a chance to make their foray into the global markets. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
With more households looking for life companions, 1 out of 3 households in South Korea owned a pet last year, and the trend is also changing consumption patterns. Our An Sung-jin has this report.
More pets, more businesses. As more South Koreans are having pets, more and more businesses are specifically targeting these pet owners to win over new customers. According to research from KB Financial Group, the number of households in South Korea that owned a pet in 2022 was more than 5.5 million. And when it comes to Seoul, 1 in every 10 households in the capital has a pet.
The number of single households increases, and we are entering an aging society, which also increases the likelihood of owning pets.
With the rising number of pets, the hospitality and tourism industries are trying to meet the demands of this increase in pet owners. For example, the Pepemjok in Korean, which literally translates to pet family tribe, has been a slogan driving business decisions. This company specifically works on providing services for pet owners like a temple stay with your dog.
Our service revolves around providing information on places that are pet-friendly. Our users have doubled for the first half of 2024 compared to last year. There are increased opportunities with pets these days, like a beach for dogs.
Data from the Korea Tourism Organization shows that the market value of Korea's pet industry is expected to reach up to $4.4 billion by 2027. This franchise cafe has been approved as a testbed by the Ministry of Trade under a regulatory sandbox framework that allows the cafe to have pets and food selling areas. Cafes and restaurants like these are helping foster a society where pets are more than just a cat and a dog. They're a lifelong companion. The cafe has a separate pet zone and a dispenser for dog training pads and water bowls and trash bags.
I try to go around with my pet, but sometimes we face restrictions, so the places we can go are limited. It's a huge advantage to come here with my pet and comfortably enjoy our time.
Apart from more businesses opening up to pets, pet owners may also be looking out for more premium and high-quality products for their companions. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The leaders of the U.S. and Ukraine signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement aimed at strengthening Ukraine's defense against Russia. And G7 leaders also agreed to lend Ukraine $50 billion using Russia's frozen assets. Lee Seung-jae has more.
This year's G7 summit, held in Italy, focused on a number of global issues, including the prolonged war in Ukraine. On the sidelines of the summit on Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky agreed on a 10-year security agreement aimed at strengthening Ukraine's defense against Russia. While the pact does not commit the U.S. to supply troops to defend Ukraine in case of an attack, it does commit Washington to hold high-level consultations with Kyiv within 24 hours if such an attack occurs. The U.S. will also continue to train Ukraine's military, deepen cooperation on defense industry production, and share more intelligence. The agreement also aims to help build Ukraine's long-term deterrence across multiple domains, including air, sea, and cybersecurity. Meanwhile, the G7 leaders also agreed on Thursday to lend Ukraine $50 billion using frozen Russian assets. While the final agreement still needs to be hashed out, most of the money would be lent by the U.S. government using windfall profits from the roughly $300 billion in frozen Russian assets. However, the vast majority of the frozen assets are being held in European Union nations. The U.S. and its allies froze all Russian central bank assets outside of Russia when Moscow invaded Ukraine in 2022. NATO will also aim for an agreement to provide over $42 billion in aid annually to Ukraine. Speaking at a press conference on the first day of the NATO defense ministers' meeting in Brussels on Thursday, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the agreement could be signed next month at the NATO summit in Washington. He added that the burden of annual financial support would be shared equally among the Security Alliance members. However, Hungary, which has long opposed military support to Ukraine, withdrew from the plan early on. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Former U.S. President Donald Trump returned to Capitol Hill on Thursday for the first time since the January 6th riot of 2021. Trump gathered the full House of Republican lawmakers, where he delivered freewheeling remarks.
As you know, with the full House, Republican House today, and we had a tremendous meeting with them also, and there's great unity, and there's one thing in common: we want to make America great again. We want to make our country great again. We're a nation that's in decline. We're a declining nation. We're a nation that is being laughed at all over the world. We have a leader that's being laughed at all over the world.
Trump spent about an hour delivering remarks on topics including Russia, immigration and abortion, as well as stressing unity among Republicans and promising to work out differences within the party. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a known critic of Donald Trump, called the visit really positive, adding that he got a lot of standing ovations. Former Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, on the other hand, released a statement saying that Trump was returning to the scene of the crime. Tesla shareholders on Thursday reapproved the pay package worth around $50 billion for the company's CEO Elon Musk, a compensation package previously thrown out by a Delaware judge earlier this year. Shareholders voted on two measures: Musk's pay package from 2018, which allows him to buy 303 million Tesla shares at a hugely reduced price, and the transfer of the electronic car company's incorporation state from Delaware to Texas. Tesla did not disclose the exact vote results, but Elon Musk posted on his social media X overnight that he had the support needed to pass the measures. The Tesla CEO won't receive the all-stock compensation package immediately. The pay package will likely remain tied up in the Delaware court for an extended period of time as Tesla appeals the court's rejection. U.S. transgender swimmer Leah Thomas lost an appeal against World Aquatics at the Court of Arbitration for Sport on Wednesday, challenging its policy barring transgender athletes from women's competition. 25-year-old Thomas became the first transgender NCAA champion in Division I history, but was later barred from elite-level competition because of a World Aquatics policy that says only transgender athletes who complete transition before the age of 12 are allowed to compete. Thomas will now be ineligible for women's trials for this summer's Paris Olympics. Over 1.5 million Muslim pilgrims have made the journey to Saudi Arabia's holy city of Mecca, as Friday, the 14th of June, marks the start of this year's Hajj. One of the world's largest annual religious gatherings, the Hajj is seen as the most significant manifestation of Islamic faith and unity, and must be performed at least once in a lifetime by all Muslims with the means to do so. The official Saudi press agency reported that as of late Monday, some 1.5 million pilgrims arrived in Saudi Arabia from abroad for the 5-day religious ritual. The Gulf Kingdom's Minister of Religious Pilgrimages stressed that no political activity will be tolerated and that the focus must be on the prayers. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The sweltering heat wave continues today with record-breaking warmth in store for the capital area. And it seems people are more exhausted and stressed from the heat nowadays, knowing it's only mid-June and it will only get hotter through August. So it's vital to be aware of the signs and symptoms with heat-related issues. Drink more water than caffeinated drinks and stay in an air-conditioned area during the hottest parts of the day. And this afternoon, Seoul and Chuncheon will go up to 33 degrees Celsius. Daejeon, Daegu, Gyeongju will see a high of 34 degrees with very high UV rays nationwide, with a chance of passing rain in southern inland regions. Speaking of rain, the capital and Gangwon-do province and Jeju could see 5 to 20 millimeters of showers tomorrow, while southern parts of Korea could see passing rain. And that rain will bring much needed heat relief to the upper regions, but not so much to the southern provinces. Then temperatures continue to stay above norms next week. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.